Welcome back, Warrior Family.
We're here with a guest to talk about anxiety.
Woohoo! Oh, Warriors, we are just in love with today's guest. You are going to
Yeah.
fall in love with them immediately. Rachel Glowacki, my sensory soul sister. We didn't have much time during the interview to talk about, mine and Rachel's relationship. We haven't known each other for too long, but in the past several months, we've become, pretty tight on the IG. And we
Mm-hmm.
went on a retreat together for kids yoga teachers a few months ago. And it was just like transformative. And she's such a special person. She was my roommate. So we were roomies, and we both have like a lot of the same sensory issues. And so we bonded super quickly and wound up talking about anxiety super fast, as we do. As you
Mm-hmm.
know, we do, Warriors. Abby and I do not shy away from talking to practical strangers about anxiety.
Yeah. We got to vet him out. Where's our warrior family? We got to know right away.
Right.
Friend or foe.
Exactly. Exactly. All right. So before Abby hops into her recap, let me let you all know a little bit about who Rachel is. Rachel Glowacki is a mindful movement educator, writer, and thought leader in the kids yoga field. She specializes in mindful movement for all ages and abilities and has been teaching since 1999. She's an award winning author of the Kids Yogaverse storybook apps and co owner of Move With Me books. Rachel hopes that one day mindful movement will be taught regularly in schools, just like math and science. She believes that a calm brain is a learning brain and a healthy body is a happy body, principles she shares with her students, young and old. Rachel lives with her husband and two sons in Eagle, Colorado. All right, Abby, let's hear about this chat.
Yeah. So I just want to say, Rachel's amazing, right?
Mhm.
What an awesome person to join our community. And when I just met, I felt like I knew her forever, right?
Yep.
She has that personality and that vibe and that welcomingness, but also that sweetness, that I learned about during lightning round.
Yes,
So she's just lovely. She's lovely.
she
So
is.
Rachel shares how growing up, she always had anxiety, but she didn't realize what she was having was anxiety. The feelings, the sensations, the behaviors, all of that she just thought was normal. And it didn't even occur to her that it was anxiety until in her late 20s she had a panic attack. And after that moment, she started to realize, oh, all of these things that have happened before this moment were anxiety. And so she started to learn more about anxiety and navigating anxiety. She speaks a bit about an eating disorder that was very much connected to anxiety and how being in recovery is now. And of course, all of the strategies that she's used to navigate her anxiety with therapy and yoga, meditation, medication, writing, and so, so much more. She is just so super sweet. She offers really powerful reframes and tips. And yeah, and a super fun lightning round. That was a lot of fun. Yeah.
Those are always the best lightning rounds. So we get a little wacky and silly.
Yeah.
It's a nice moment of levity at the end of our conversation. Oh, so Warriors, we can't wait for you to hear from this warrior. We hope you love this conversation as much as we loved having it. Without further ado, here's the show. Welcome, Warriors.
Yay!
We are stoked to be joined today by a fabulous human. God, I love you so much. Miss Rachel Glowacki, welcome to the show.
Thank you. I'm excited to be here.
Yay. Oh my gosh. So, let's dive right in. Let's talk about anxiety. That's what we're here to do. We're here to chat about
Mm-hmm.
our anxiety, specifically yours. Abby and I talk way too much about our own anxiety.
Yeah.
Let's hear about yours. Tell us and our listeners a bit about how anxiety has showed up in your life.
Ooh, so I would say that anxiety has been in my life since I can remember. I always actually thought anxiety was normal. I thought it was a normal feeling for me. So probably like fifth grade is when I really noticed my anxiety. I wouldn't want to raise my hand in class. I never wanted to read out loud. I was always so super nervous. And then it developed into an eating disorder. So when I think about the word anorexia nervosa, right, like nervous, like it kind of, that was like my external behavior of dealing with my anxiety. Um, I could say, I can say now, what is it? What year is it? 20 years. I've been in recovery, so feel like haven't thrown up my food in 20 years. So I feel like that's such a great celebration. And yet I live with anxiety and I'm constantly taking care of it. So feel like it ebbs and flows. But ever since I was a child, like anxiety has been with me.
I so relate, first of all, to like, I mean, not raising your hand in class. I mean, Margot and I were literally just talking about this the other day. Like, even as grown-ups, when there's like a group of people and we all have to share something, like the sweat is just dripping, even though I'm like, I can handle this, right? I'm like, anxiety, we got this. Like, so relate to that. Not wanting to read aloud in class. Like, when you said that, it like brought me back to first grade. And I was like, trembling, you know, like I feel those feelings like that, like just the way it came up. So I have two questions. The first is you had said how like you just thought it was a normal feeling. So like when did you realize that? And in some sense it is normal. It keeps us safe, right? But in the other sense, we, you know, don't always have normal amounts of anxiety in us. When did you realize like, oh, this isn't normal? Like not everyone's sharing this experience.
Yeah, it's actually interesting. Yoga, when I was like in my late 20s, went through my yoga teacher training, and my kids were 1 and 2 years old. And that is when I first had my first panic attack. And because living with anxiety, like, right, like I always say, like, anxiety makes you feel like you know that you care, or anxiety helps you get shit done, like
Mm-hmm.
it is a superpower that we have, but then when it transfers over to like where it debilitates your life, it's a totally different thing. And so I was driving my kids to a birthday party, and all of a sudden I thought I was having a stroke. Like I
Oh
literally,
God.
like my face went
Yeah.
numb, my heart was racing, and I turned myself around and went to the ER, and I really thought I was having a heart attack. Like I was like, this is crazy. And they did all the things. I got, the MRI, did all of it, and everything came back clear. And they're like, you're having a panic attack. But I'm like, how is this possible? I have the best life. Like I
Mm.
love what I do. My kids are amazing. I love my husband. Like I couldn't wrap my head around why I was having that trigger response at that point.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like I lived with it all the way really up until like my late 20s,
Yeah.
like not knowing.
Right. Right.
Wow.
And first of all, like that's awesome they did all the tests. I
They
like
did.
recently went to like the hospital for some heart stuff and their first thing was like, "Are you sure it's not anxiety?" And I was like, "Screw you. I have a podcast. I know it's not anxiety." Like, right? So, I love that they took you seriously because I feel like to an extent when you do have anxiety, there's like, "Wait, am I being like you didn't know, so you weren't like, "Wait, is this anxiety or is this real?" Right? But the fact that
Yeah.
the medical field took you seriously is very nice. Did
Yeah,
they did they offer any once they were like, this is a panic attack, were they like, here's some things you can do to help? Or were they just like, good luck?
I do feel like it was a good luck. I might have went home with a Xanax.
Yeah.
And at that point in my life, I was really resistant towards medicine. And now I'm like, I want to write an article about medication and meditation because
Mm-hmm.
it can save people's lives and you
Yes.
don't suffer. And the way we treat it is so different. It makes me think like I'm on thyroid medicine, not even blinking an eyeball.
Mm-hmm.
But
Right.
like, why do we do that when someone is like, you
Mental
have to be
health.
cool
Yep.
off? Like, it's no different.
Mm-hmm.
Your brain is no different than your thyroid. So it took me a really long time to make peace with that. But they did send me to a neurologist because my symptom was like I was numbing, like my face went.
Wow.
And then
Yeah.
actually, I am nervous. Like I had COVID 3 years ago. My default is anxiety, and my hands went numb,
Oh
and my
God. Yeah.
numb.
During
And
COVID.
Yep. And I knew it was anxiety because of my past experience of knowing
Mm-hmm.
that
Right.
like, my symptom is numbing, which is so interesting. It was called at the time, like I was going to therapy too for an eating disorder, but it's called a conversion disorder where your body physically manifests something that your mind can't handle.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
Yeah. And so like it's like a real medical term where they can't really tell you what's wrong with you.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. But they gave a
Um,
nice word, conversion disorder, right? They
Version
weren't like,
disorder. So I was transferring, right, like onto my body because there was
wow.
nothing neurologically wrong with me.
Right. Wow.
And yeah, it's kind of crazy
Yeah.
how that
Yeah.
happened.
I love
Mhm.
hearing, I always love hearing our guests share their like anxiety origin stories, because each of us have that moment or that time or that situation when we realize this experience is anxiety. And then all of a sudden, our childhood memories, our late teen memories, our 20s, whatever it is, whenever we discovered it, comes flooding to the surface like, oh, this explains so much of my life experience up until this point. What would have happened if I would have had this language or this understanding or this knowledge of this is anxiety? And it's a normal thing, and it's also something that, you know, we have some tools and some things we can create for you that might be helpful to try, right? And so like I like I always do, I felt this like wash of same girl, right? Like as
Yeah.
soon as you shared, you know, that origin story, it's like I had my panic attack in my late 20s, and mine was around 18. Abby's was, you know, like around what, early 20s, Ab? I can't remember.
Early 20s. Yeah. Good
Yeah.
job.
Thanks. But you know, it's just like I can whenever I hear someone share that moment, it always just reminds me of my own moment. And I feel like so many warriors, when they hear that, it's just yet another moment of pause that they can say, okay, right. Like it doesn't matter how old I was when I figured this out. What matters is that I figured this out and that I'm not all alone in it. And I was never all alone in it. And I just want to go back to something you said when you were talking about when the doctor said, you're having a panic attack. And you were like, but how is this possible? Because so many of the things in your life were going right. Right. And I'm putting like air quotes around right, because it's like, you know, on the surface, many of us, maybe if we're lucky and privileged enough, have so many wonderful things to be grateful for, so many wonderful people and experiences and, you know, things that we get to have had happen to us, and yet we can still be anxious people. And yet, right? It's that and yet. Um, and so I just want to acknowledge like that you sharing all of that is, I know, helping so many people listening right now, because that's just the one thing that I feel like always is the through line in all anxiety warrior journeys, is that we feel like something's wrong all the time, right? We feel like something's wrong, something's wrong, something's wrong. And then we get that language, right? We find the things that help, whether it be right away from the doctor throwing you a Xanax, which it's like, all right, that's not necessarily helpful, right? But then you wound up figuring out all this other stuff because of that moment, because of that awful experience. And so just sort of that like reminder for everyone listening that it's an, you know, it's a yes and experience. It's like a things can be amazing, but you can also have anxiety. Things can be awesome, right? Or on the surface, it's great. And you have so much to be happy about and grateful for. But also, right, it's normal to ebb and flow, as you said, Rachel, in the human experience. So I just want to thank you for sharing that, because I feel like it's helping so many people.
Oh, I'm so glad. It makes me teary. Because I know
Yeah.
it's hard to live with. And like my sister and I really battle mostly. And like we say, we're having anxiety about my anxiety. Like, are you
Yes.
anxiety about having anxiety? Are you going to have anxiety about having a panic attack? Or like, because you
Right.
don't ever want to feel that.
Yeah.
It
Yeah.
is, it's scary
Yeah.
and you feel out of
Yes.
control and it's tough to
Mhm.
move through. So
Yeah.
yeah, no, we're not alone.
Yeah.
No. And, I mean, what you both are saying is like, I feel, and I'll speak for me, but this is what I hear is like, sometimes we feel like guilt or shame because we have amazing, loving husbands. We have all these good things in our lives. And it's like, why can't I just get over my dumbass anxiety? I have a good life, right? Or whatever. There's like that guilt or that like shame of like, I'm a mindfulness teacher and I still have anxiety, like all of those things when it's like, no, just because you have like great things happening in your life doesn't mean you don't have this other piece. Like I just keep hearing that too. It's like, there's no shame in anxiety, right? There's no shame in our anxiety having anxiety. It's like, it's just part of the process. And it sounds like we all find humor in our anxiety as a way to cope with
Yes.
it.
I just want to say to you, Rachel, that I really appreciate you speaking vulnerably about your eating disorder, your experience with having an eating disorder. Another thing that I'm sure many of the warriors listening can relate to, if not directly themselves, but I'm sure people from their past, people in their lives currently, whenever. If we can just touch on briefly, if you're comfortable, and if you're not, we can skip this, but um, how did you wind up learning that? Because you kind of said both things together, right? Did you feel like, or did you wind up learning from doctors that your eating disorder was related to anxiety? Because I don't know that that's necessarily true for everyone, right? And so, like, how are these two things connected from those previous versions of yourself?
Yeah, that's a really great question. I'm always so transparent about it because I always feel like, if we go through something, it could be for someone else. So like if anyone can, if you can help anyone. I don't know if I made those dots early. I think I was, I always felt very separate. Like I always thought anxiety was like part of who I was. Also from a family with like a line of anxiety, and everyone's like really hyper and like from New York and Italian and just everyone's like that. And so you just kind of live on a high vibration like that. Um, but I was in sixth grade and I ended up going into like an eating disorder group because I was losing lots of weight. And so I went into this eating disorder group, and then it continued all the way until high school. So I was like, I feel like I was constantly in recovery, but it really wasn't until my panic attack that I connected the dots that was my external behavior, either starving, binging, purging, whatever it was at the time, was connected to that.
Mm.
But now, and it's true, it's like, like when I don't know, like not everyone with an eating disorder has anxiety, but I do think they're very, very close. It's very closely related, for me, because I was anxious about losing weight, what I was eating, the constant like mental clutter in the mind. Like that was what I was anxious about. And then
Ah.
and then when I started going through recovery, I started getting anxious about my kids or anxious about what I was doing, so it was like whatever I was hyper focusing on.
Interesting.
It
Yeah.
is, yeah.
So you notice that pattern of like, okay, wherever my thoughts, are most traveled to, that's where all the stress, that's where all the anxiety was sort of hanging out.
Yeah. And now as a mom of teenagers with kids who drive, I notice that like the thing is now I have tools where I have the anxiety, but I don't stay there long.
Yeah.
I'm not
Right.
spinning in the circle.
Yeah.
Um, so I'm like, oh, that's my anxiety. Gray's driving home. It's snowing. That makes sense. I'm able to like
Connect it.
put things
Mm-hmm.
together a little bit and take care of myself more than just, feel like I want to be in a room with the covers over my head.
Yeah.
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 I
And
can
shut it
very
all
much
out
relate to
until it
that.
goes away. Like, yeah.
Yeah.
Like, oh my God, what's happening?
Yes. Oh gosh. Okay. Thank you so much for adding that little bit about that part of the story, because I do feel like it's part of your story, and
Mm-hmm.
it's super valuable. So appreciate you. So in addition to like the numbing, which I find so interesting, and I don't think we've had anyone share that physical experience.
Conversion. Yeah.
Yeah. Talk to us more about how anxiety, either presently, or just generally in your past, has manifested itself in you physically, emotionally, in like mind body behaviors.
Yeah. I mean, besides like the numbing and the tingling, like for me, it's more like my heart races or I'm running to the bathroom and have like diarrhea, like that is a big one where it's like, and I call it bubble guts. My sister and I were like, oh shoot, we're having bubble guts. It's like, I actually think I want to write a kid book about bubble guts
Yeah.
because
Okay,
They
define
need
bubble guts.
it.
I need a perfect definition for what
okay,
it's define it though.
that like literally that gurgling, bubbling feeling in your stomach when you're nervous. It's almost like it's more than butterflies. It like goes beyond
Yeah.
butterflies. It's like it's almost like when you almost feel sick and you're
Yeah.
having like a stomach bug. And
Ah,
it's that intense where you're just like, oh,
Yeah.
like
And
I
then the
can't.
panic, like, oh my God, I hope there's a bathroom close.
Exactly. So then
Yeah.
I'm anxiety about how going to the bathroom.
Yeah.
This is how I know I've grown because like I've been teaching for a long time and I've done like virtual classes for years. But when I first started doing virtual classes online, I literally would have to run to the bathroom every time before I taught because I was
mm,
so
Wow. So your body's just like, get this out now.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm like this, I'm so nervous. I don't want to look stupid. I don't want to feel like I don't know what I'm talking about. And I do all this prep and I like literally like have the runs. And I was like smiling before I got on this call because I was like, I didn't have to go to the bathroom. I'm growing.
Yeah. And you're drinking coffee, right? Like
just cozily over there. You look very relaxed.
Snuggled up. It's
Oh my
like,
gosh.
yeah. So there's
I mean, we take the growth, right? We take the growth where we can get it.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. And that's a huge, I mean, like in my 20s, I had IBS and everything. And like they're like, we don't know why. Probably you're stressed, right? Like we can tell you to take Imodium. It's like, I don't want to take Imodium. Then I won't go to the bathroom for weeks, right? So but then once I started how to like be more stress-free and breathe and all that, all of a sudden it started to go away. I was like, oh, yoga and mindfulness.
Yeah, I know. It's so magic.
It is magic for sure. So speaking on the magic, talk to us about some of the strategies. You've been touching on it a little bit, but what are some of the go-tos for you when it comes to coping with your anxiety? And again, feel free to speak to like, back when you didn't have many strategies versus now. And of course, like here you are just sipping coffee and really chill chatting with us.
Yeah. I'm not going to poop my pants.
Yeah.
Woo! Wins on wins.
Win-win.
We love it.
I would say like when I didn't really I've always been in therapy. Like I was a kid that always went to therapy and I was introduced to therapy young because I was 8 and my dad and my parents were getting divorced. And so back in the 80s, there was like no divorced kids. Where I grew up. So I was like in this like divorce group. So I was exposed to therapy very early on. And so that has always been like a go-to for me. And then in my 20s in college, I would say exercise. I ended up and started teaching step aerobics and weightlifting. That's how I became a fitness instructor. So I kind of transferred, the I'm so fat and starving myself to going the other direction of, I wouldn't necessarily say I had orthorexia by no means, but tendencies of hyper focusing on eating very healthy, drinking only water, exercising a lot, so I kind of like flip the script, healthier pattern, but still dealing with what was happening on the inside,
Yeah.
And then yoga. I would say yoga has really saved me from myself. Breathing, meditating. I mean, even just waking up early when no one is up in the house, and like waiting for the sun to rise and just sit and stare at the mountains. I live in Colorado. It's so beautiful. Going on walks, talking to friends like you. I think talking it out is one of the best ways because then you're not alone.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Those are strategies. And now I'm like all about writing, and I do a lot of writing practices around anxiety.
Love that.
Yeah. I mean, Colorado is a beautiful place for walks and everything.
Yeah.
But
my nervous system set me.
Yeah, exactly. And you're in like a gorgeous place that I've never been to. I've only heard it's gorgeous.
You gotta come.
Yeah, I know. It's gonna happen. But I'm with you. Like I feel like something shifted in my anxiety the more I started to talk about it. Right. Because again, it's like goes back to like, at least for me, like that shame and that guilt and like, no one's going to understand me. Like, what's wrong with me? And it's like, oh no, we all have that moment where like, we're afraid we're going to like, we have to run to the bathroom or we're dripping sweat or we don't want to speak up or we're people please. Right. It's like, oh wait, all these things I do, I have a community of people too. And it's really like shifted it just by talking about it.
Yeah. We take away the shame and the shame and guilt around it. There's nothing
to
feel shameful about.
What I like about some of the strategies too is that some of them can be done in community. Some of them are a little bit more of like a solo activity. So there's a nice like balance there, that I think a lot of the warriors can say like, oh, right, like maybe I'm a little bit more introverted. Maybe I don't really feel great about going to a yoga class, but I can have a solo practice, right? Or learn about how to engage with meditation or breath work, maybe not necessarily in large groups, but like on my own. But in everything that you shared, there are ways for you to do it solo or with groups of people, right? Depending on who you are or what stage of your own journey you're on. So I just love like hearing the balance that it sounds like you've created for yourself to take
Yeah,
care.
lifeline.
Yeah. And that's what we all need, right? We all need a lifeline. And I agree with what you just said, because it's like everything shifted for me when I started surrounding myself, not just talking about it myself, but
Yeah.
surrounding myself with people that were vulnerable and
Yeah.
said stuff, you know what I mean? Like talked about their experience and their story. And
Mhm.
because I gained so much from hearing their situation or from the guts that it took to share it outwardly with sometimes people that I've just met or that I only met recently. And it's just like, oh, wow, okay, this person's really authentic. This person's not afraid to truly be themselves in front of anyone. And there's something just so like liberating about that.
Mhm.
That's felt really powerful for me too. So I feel that.
Mm.
How would you describe your relationship to anxiety these days? If you could like put a phrase or a label, we've had people give us like Facebook statuses on their relationship with anxiety. How would you define it or describe it?
I almost feel like now it's like a parent-child relationship as a mom, because it's like I'm like, oh, that's little Rachel letting me know that she needs to feel safe. I'm gonna mother
Mm.
her. I'm gonna nurture
Oh,
her and tell her it's okay, and yeah, like we're gonna take care of it. Thank you for showing me that that's what I'm afraid of, and
mm.
kind of have like that insourcing care.
Full body
Yeah.
chills.
Yeah.
Insourcing. I've never heard that before. I'm
Yeah.
obsessed with it. I am going to fully adopt that word.
Yeah.
I learned from a friend of
Insourcing.
mine who's a coach. Her name's Jamie, and I'm blocking out on her last name because I don't know how to pronounce it.
That's
But she
okay.
calls it like
Jamie.
outsourcing and insourcing, and it's like, how can you insource here
Yeah.
to
And that, I
care?
mean, I feel like that's the ultimate self-care, right? It's like when something arises, can I pause and tend to that part of myself? Right. And it
Yeah.
can be a minute, it can be an hour, it can be weeks, like whatever it is. But it's, like self care gets thrown around so much, but that is actually just self care. That is it. Tending to the
Yeah, I
parts
know
that need it.
it's an overused word, right? But like I think it was one of Susan Verde's books, is I Am Love, and on the back in the back, it talks about when you put your hand on yourself, it releases oxytocin, right? And like that's the
Hmm.
bonding chemical. And I think like so I do put my hands on myself a lot to regulate myself. And
Mhm.
so there is this like tender, nurturing care. Um, because I don't ever want to go back to old stressed out
Mm.
Rachel. And she
Yeah.
comes up,
Yeah.
like it's not like she's not there.
Right.
She does come in. But that would be like my relationship now as like more like parent child.
Yeah.
Mm.
Love
I
it.
love that you're speaking to your inner child like that and like thanking her,
Yeah. Yeah.
It's like, thank you for showing me that. Like what a gesture that is to be able to look at yourself from an objective but empathetic and compassionate place. I feel like it takes a lot of us well into our adulthoods, right, to get to that place. Or maybe speaking as fellow 80s babies here and 80s
Well,
kids,
right.
right?
Mhm.
Yeah. And so yeah, what were you gonna say?
No, I was just thinking like I wonder like because we all work with children and we're teaching them these tools and methods now. Like I didn't know
Exactly.
any regulation techniques at
Yeah.
that age. And
Zero.
I mean, my hope would be that they're not learning this shit in their 40s. They're learning,
Mm-hmm.
in kindergarten, and they know that they can take a breath or they can stomp their feet or whatever their
Yeah.
method is to regulate their own system.
Yeah.
Why we do the work we all do,
Mm-hmm.
Exactly.
you know.
That's exactly it. And Abby and I mean, we talk about somatic holds like pretty much all the
Yeah.
time. Like it's like
Yeah.
one of our love languages, I think.
Yes.
Not just for ourselves, but like in our friendship, which is kind
Oh,
of funny. And we talk about like we need to add a somatic holds shirt to our merch
Yes.
shop. We've been talking
Yes.
about it for too long. It's time to
Yeah.
get one.
Yeah.
I'll buy.
Anyway, so speaking of talking to your inner child, let's go back in time a little bit. If you could speak to a younger version of yourself right now, what kind of advice would you offer her?
Oh, I would say don't worry about it. Like it's gonna be okay, and you got this. You are capable. Probably the way I talk to myself now, it's like give it a voice and write it out. Um, I do believe in going down the worst case scenario sometimes because it gives it less power. Um,
Mm.
I used to try to avoid worst case scenario thinking, and then I would say, well, then what if that happened? Okay. Well, then what if that happened? Okay. Well, then how would I change? How would that happen? And then when you go down that hole and you exhaust it, there's
Yes.
no more power.
Yeah.
And then I would have my little girl flip the script. So what's your best case scenario? Tell me all the best case scenario things
Yeah.
Mm.
that that could work. So like spending your energy and focusing on what, you know, is the best.
Yeah, I love that. But with the opportunity first to express all the fears and let them out,
Yes.
right? Because when we tell ourselves or people tell children or when we were kids or whatever, like lock it up, calm down, don't worry about it, it's not going to happen. It's like those fears are still there. Like give them voice, and after they get the voice, then let's focus on the other side of it. Like I just love that so much. Like it's
Hmm.
everyone needs that.
Yes.
Yeah, and it makes me think when you were talking about it, it's probably why my body manifest did the way it did because
Mm.
I was silenced, I was
Mhm.
afraid, I didn't talk,
Yeah.
I went numb.
Right. It's all connected. It all makes so much sense,
Yeah.
truly.
It's
Yeah.
constantly layering. I feel like I talk about anxiety all the time. I'm like having a moment by you just saying that. I was like, wow, like that's what I would tell my little girl. I never been asked that question.
Hmm. Yeah. That's so good. It's like when we're silencing those parts of ourselves, we're not actively making them go away. We're actually harming ourselves when we speak to ourselves that way. And it's like you just said, Abby, it's like that's what people say to kids all the time, right? It's fine. Don't worry about it. That's never going to happen. It's like that isn't going to belay anyone's fears. Like truly, you're only compounding it. And it's
Right.
like I wish more people understood that sooner. But then again, everyone's just operating with what they have in the moment. And it's, we have to acknowledge that too. But I love that advice. That's so good. And it's the best part about advice for younger self is that it's really just advice for right now.
Yeah. It
Always.
always works.
It always works for right now. Um, so final question before we get into some lightning round. Fun. What does being an anxiety warrior mean to you? When you hear this phrase, what comes up?
Um, okay, so when I think of anxiety warrior, I think of somebody who is living with how to take care of themselves in a really powerful way. Because the word warrior to me is like strong and powerful. And then the anxiety word is like, whew, that's scary, that's frightening. But so you're living in the end in both worlds. You are literally holding yourself up through, like I think of like warrior two, like you're like holding anxiety and you're holding your warrior. Um, and it's a balance, and you can get through it, you know.
So good. It's a balance and you can get through it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's
I
always
don't
the
know that we've heard
reminder.
anyone else describe it that way too. It's
Yeah.
like, right, it's people usually take either one end of the spectrum or the other, but not think about. And I love the visualization of Warrior Two. And for our non-yogi listeners, right, it's just like arms out wide and like a big T shape, right? And so it's like if you imagine like and like the justice system too, right? We've got something on both hands, right? And it just feels fair, right? That we have a little bit of both. We can hold these both things as true. We're anxious, but we're warriors, right? We're still moving through it with our with as much inner strength as we can muster in a moment. So
Mhm.
so good.
Mhm.
Oh, thank you so much, Rachel, for sharing your heart and your story and so many valuable tools and tips for the warriors to try. But now it's time to get a little silly, to just like get down in the mud and play a little bit. We're gonna get ready for lightning round.
I have anxiety about the
Lightning.
lightning questions.
Always. People are either so game or they're like, oh my God, I'm just like crawling to myself.
I'm sweating now.
Yeah. We promise to hold you. We're going to hold you and young Rachel too. All right. So Abby and I are going to go back and forth. We're going to ask you just like a fun get to know you type question just to add some levity to sometimes a heavy conversation, which is our mental health and our anxiety. So, Abby, you want me to go first?
Doesn't matter.
Oh, you're throwing. All right, you go.
Okay. All right. So I'll start with I think this is an easy one. I think this is easy. When I say favorite, I say that very loosely because I personally don't really have favorites. I have loads of things I like a lot and like lots of things that can fall in favorite. So I'm just saying that because I don't like picking a favorite. So I'm saying favorite in a loose way for you. So if you will share what is your typical favorite yoga pose to be in your body, your favorite yoga pose to teach grownups, and your favorite yoga pose to teach kids, and why for all three? Like, why for each one?
Ooh, it's really interesting because it's all the same pose.
Oh.
And it's child's pose.
Oh.
And I think because one, the name, because I love words. So it kind of brings you into that innocent space. And you are relaxing and no one's looking at you. And you're not looking at anyone else. And you get to really dial into your breath and your body.
You are such a sweet, nice teacher.
For real.
I love
want
teaching
Rachel to
grown-ups
teach
like
me.
chair pose, right? Make them suffer.
Abby. Oh my gosh.
I want them to know they can handle it, right?
That's important. We need strong teachers to have that.
What does a long exhale do when you're in a chair pose? But yours is so like sweet and gentle. Like that's probably the class I would gravitate towards, right?
And
like to go to.
Because
if this just doesn't,
I need my booty kicked, you know?
If it doesn't just perfectly explore the two of you as I know you, like completely, I mean, everything you've said, it's just like, yup, that makes sense. Yup, that makes sense.
I think we should do it's like a class together.
Yes.
Like you teach the strength and I'll teach the
sweet. Yes. Because mine, I'm like, you got this. You can handle this. Do a long exhale. We can do this for a few more breaths, right? And they're all like starting to get a little upset.
Like, we hate you.
Like, yeah. And then it's like, all right, now we're going to relax. And they're like, oh, we love you so much. But for me, the purpose is really that we can handle this, even if it's uncomfortable. And in chair pose, it's safe, right? So it's not like we're doing some crazy pose. Anyway.
Totally.
I guess I would be somewhere in the middle. I would be somewhere in the middle on this spectrum, I think. I'm a Cancer baby, so I'm extremely moody. So one day I'm definitely more like Abby, and then other days I'm 100% Rachel.
I love it.
All right. Okay, let's see. Which one do I want to do first? Oh, okay. So since Abby just illustrated for you that like favorite can be a loose word, I'm going to go with one of the questions that I had that had the word favorite in it. So take it as you will. What is your favorite or one of your favorite book characters, either from childhood stories or from adulthood stories? What's your favorite character from a book and why?
Ooh. Well, okay, there's this book that's coming to me and I don't know the author. It's a tree. It's called Little Tree. And the little tree goes through all the seasons and does not let go of her leaves. And so all the other trees are growing around her and through summer and spring and then winter and she's still holding on to these leaves until one day she decides to let go and grow. And I love that character because one, it's not a person. So I feel like we can identify with nature. And also I feel like I can be that tree where I don't let go and I want to hold on to things so tightly because I don't want them to change. And then when they change, you realize things are actually better.
So beautiful.
It's like you knew these questions ahead of time, but you didn't. These answers
I know,
are
right?
just so beautiful and perfect. And like,
For real.
I mean, like,
we're used to people being like, oh God, I don't know.
yeah.
And then like waiting, and then we have to edit out 30 to 60 seconds of just dead
I
air.
just feel like I'm hanging out with my girlfriends. So
I
it's just
mean,
like, and we're being recorded, and I'm like, whatever.
Yeah, it's beautiful. I want to
I
see the
know.
story now.
Oh my gosh, it's so good. It's
I know.
so
I'm
good.
definitely looking it up. Little
Especially for
Tree.
a kid class. I think the name Lauren Long, I think it is. I'm gonna find it.
Okay.
So sweet.
Okay, you send it to us.
Lauren Long. I got that. So, okay. So I feel like you were maybe our only guest. Margot will correct me. I know if I'm wrong with this. That has lived in New York and now lives in Colorado.
Oh.
Yeah. All right. Which is me too, right? So like I'm from New York. I lived in New York. I'm in Colorado. So what is one thing that surprised you in positive, negative, doesn't matter, way when you moved to Colorado? Like something you're like, oh, I'm surprised by this. And one thing you miss about New York that isn't in Colorado.
Well, the first thing that I think about, I miss my family because I've chosen to live a life that isn't like around my family. And like my sister and her kids go to my mom's house every Sunday and they have the pasta and it's like, I want the meatballs and I'm not there. So that's so that. And I think what surprised me about Colorado, because before Colorado, I was living in Charleston, South Carolina for 20 years. And so everybody from New York and my family, it was like, Rachel is not going to survive Colorado. There's no way. She's a beach girl. There's no way she's going to be able to handle it. And I have to say, it's one of the most favorite places I lived. And I love the cold.
Okay.
I don't mind the cold. And it's a different cold than New York, right?
It is.
Like,
yes, it is a better cold.
It's a better cold because I felt like growing up in New York, it was like this gray cold. It's grayer and it's not the sky here is more blue and the sun is out. So it doesn't feel as dreary.
Yes.
And it's drier. So you're not like your teeth are cold and your bones aren't cold.
Yes.
And like this morning I bundled up and I took the dogs for a walk and it was 6 degrees. And I was like, I'm doing it. I'm fine.
Yeah, right.
That actually really surprised me.
Yes. Yeah. I'm totally with you on that.
Okay.
Yeah, but I do love
6 degrees.
Yeah.
I love the hill.
Yeah, I miss that. Every time I talk to anyone, I'm like, Colorado is definitely one of the best states. New York, California. Colorado could be like the best state if it had a beach,
100%.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. I'm hung up on 6 degrees. That sounds like a fiery hellscape.
But not
anyway,
like it's not like a New York 6.
Doesn't matter. 6 degrees. I mean, so what does it feel like? 20? Does it feel like 20? Like,
I don't know. It will surprise you.
It's like because it's so sunny
I couldn't wait to get
out.
out. I will say I visited the one time. I don't think I'll be back too soon. I love you both, but I just no. I'm sorry. Too many big rocks. Anyway, so I'm oscillating between which one I want. Okay, I'm going to end with the most ridiculous one. So here comes a normalish one. What is one of the best pieces of advice you've ever been given?
Ooh, I'm stumped on that. I got to think about that for a second. Best piece
Got
of
one.
advice.
I got one.
I know. I feel like I have like multiple things flooding through, like little phrases. Love what you do, and the money will follow. Who gives a fuck what people think? Like I'm thinking of my friend Veronica, and I'm just gonna share authentically because this is what's coming through in this moment. Is she passed away from ovarian cancer, but she just had this like carefree about life when she was dying and just really living life like as if every day is your last day. And you just don't know when your last day is, but she did. And she'd always say, I know that my time is coming. But it was just such a beautiful, like, she just stands out to me as somebody like living your day and not really worrying about the things, the mundane things, the things that we get kind of like we fret over. think keeping it really simple.
Mm,
Yeah.
amazing.
I love that. And it's like beautiful, beautiful advice. And yet it's like so hard to like
It's
not
so
get
hard.
caught up in all of the chaos.
Yeah.
Yeah.
In the thick of
And the
whatever
dumb
situation
stuff.
you're in.
And yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, like I was like complaining that I had to drive to go do something today and then come back, and it was like an hour round trip. And I was like, I get to do this actually.
Yes.
So I
Yeah.
have to self-talk, like talk to myself a lot.
Yeah. Reframes.
Yep.
Yes.
So
That
helpful.
reframe is everything. Yeah, the reframe is everything. But it is hard. We can acknowledge that being a human being is really complicated. It's really hard. The
Mhm.
range of emotions is so present in every day. And so, but what a gift that your friend Veronica gave to you and in turn to us and everyone listening right now, right? Which is to just do our best when we can, when we do remember, when we're able to anchor to that moment of just like, oh yeah, but at time is so fucking fleeting and who the hell knows, and it could be my last breath right now, and right, so what can I do to bring myself the most joy or peace or whatever
Yeah.
right now? So it's such a great one. Well, now I'm sad that I didn't ask it last, but oh
Yeah.
well. Oh
Yeah.
well.
Well, I'm going to lighten it up real fast.
Okay.
Go.
Okay. Because you were an 80s and 90s kid, right? All right.
All
All right. So I'm going to just ask a string of like 3 questions, right? So first, Backstreet or NSYNC?
I really didn't like them either.
Okay.
Okay. All
No,
right.
it's okay. It's okay.
It's okay.
No
At
shame.
least you didn't say Backstreet.
Okay, good. I'm glad.
Yeah.
You passed the test. You're okay.
But is that the one that sings bye bye bye? Or is that is
They
That
didn't
you did it
sing.
right. That was
NSYNC
right.
sings bye bye bye.
okay,
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, I don't even know.
Then
I was a grunger.
you were a grunger.
I was total grunge, Nirvana, Doc Martens.
Oh,
Give me
okay.
Yeah,
Lemon
we were
Thunder.
spectrum girls. We
Yeah.
were spectrum girls.
Yeah, we
and stare at the ceiling.
yeah. So favorite grunge song of the 90s that you could like sing every single word of it now.
Oh, goodness. I'm having a mental moment.
Or any, I mean, it could be any
I
night.
know.
Like Margot and I can still do Shoop.
Oh, that's so fun. I don't know why I'm having anxiety. I can't think. A song. I love 90s grunge. I don't know.
That's okay. It's okay. This is your assignment, right? When we're done, you're gonna pull up Spotify
Yeah.
and grunge out for like 20 minutes.
Yeah.
Hold on. I'm like, my brain is like not working. I'm
You're
like, why
like,
can't I think of
wait.
a song?
I mean, I could say some Nirvana
If you
songs.
put a song on, I'd be
Yeah.
like singing
Teen
it.
Yeah.
Spirit.
Yeah. Linger from the Cranberries.
There you go.
Yeah.
Such a good one.
Zombie.
Zombie. Zombie. Ooh, all right, that's enough of that.
I know.
All right,
Now
what
I'm just gonna in your head. In your head. All right, it's gonna be there for
We're gonna be
repeat.
singing all day.
was there a third question, Abby?
Yeah.
No, I threw it out once I learned grunge.
Oh, okay.
Once I was gonna do like the 90s poppin', you know, and grunge, although I do know the songs, I wouldn't be able to think of them off the top of my head.
Yeah.
So like throwing out different bands.
All good.
Okay, my final question. Is this the final question?
Yeah, it's the
Yes.
final.
Okay. All right. Well, saving the weirdest for
final
last.
question.
Okay. Oh my God. Okay. So, in your like pre-interview email, you had said that you were learning the harmonica,
Oh.
but that your kid said that you sound like a dying cat.
Yeah.
So, we need to hear your best impression of a dying cat.
Oh my gosh. I already know. It's like
Wait, one more time. Wait, she's
She's getting
leaving.
it.
Where'd she go?
She's getting it. She's getting the dying cat
We
sound.
get to hear the real harmonica?
I don't even know how to play it anymore because I stopped after they said that, but it was
Oh
like
no, don't let them bully you. I'm not getting anything.
No,
Are
there's-
you? It's got to be
Not meant
because
to
of the mics or something.
not meant to be.
That is hilarious. You just put it up to your mouth. Abby and I are staring at you so expectantly, and then nothing's happening.
Sound at all.
And maybe you're sparing me of my dying cat sound. So I think
Maybe
that's
it. It's a
I don't
beautiful
know.
silence that comes out when you play the harmonica. It's a peaceful
disappointed.
silence.
We owe the Warriors a dying cat sound. I'm so disappointed
I
right
have to
now.
edit one in. Find a dying cat.
No, you know what we're gonna do? You're gonna send me an audio file via text, and I'm gonna send it to Abby, and she's gonna put it in.
Okay, fantastic. I'll do it. I'll do it. But when I was playing the harmonica, it was for Silent Night. I really wanted to play that for Christmas, and it didn't go well. So I was like, yeah, that's my dying cat.
Yeah, your family's like, what the fuck is they doing in there?
What kind of podcast is this?
Yeah, I thought you were talking about anxiety. Why are there animal sounds happening? Just explain to them that we're freaks. They'll hear it eventually. They'll get it.
I love
That's
it.
so funny. All right. Well, what a strange place to end it. Anyway, we love to ask our guests before you share where our listeners can find you. Anything you want to share about the work you're doing in the world, which, we want to hear about that. We love to ask our guests to share a win of the week, something big or small that's happened recently. It doesn't even have to be this week, but just something recently that's felt like a win.
So wait, Matt, doing a win and then where you can find me?
Yes. A win
Okay.
first.
Okay. A win. Well, I feel like I'm having a great win with my business, which is Move With Me books. And I met this amazing illustrator in New York, and I loved his work so much. It made me so happy. I reached out to him, and he's going to create an illustration based on my colors and my logo and my website to put in the background of all my kid videos that I'm going to be doing. So I'm super
Love
stoked about that.
it.
I'm so happy.
Is your
so
face going to be
exciting.
on it?
No, it's just I want it to be nature. So it's going to be like an
Oh.
illustration in the background. So it allows the viewer to have something peaceful to look at if they zone out.
Love it. I
Wow.
love
I'm
it.
excited to see that.
Yeah.
I know, me too.
Yeah, I
You have to
can't
check
wait.
out.
I'll send you a link to his work. It's so great.
Or just your site. We'll add it to our show notes too. So tell everyone how they can find
Yeah.
you and a little bit about your work.
Yes. So I'm a kids yoga teacher, an adult teacher, but mainly right now what I'm doing is it's called movewithmebooks.com. That's where you can go to the website. I'm on Instagram, Facebook. Basically, my vision and intention with this project is to be like the modern day Mrs. Rogers. If you don't know who Mr. Rogers is, go look him up. But
Oh
I
my
remember
God.
as a kid, feeling so loved and seen through the screen. And especially like if you're in a home that feels chaotic, having that calm feeling. And I feel like everything right now in our world is very overly stimulating. And so what I'm doing is reading other people's books, and connecting movement and breath to them. So not only do you look at a book and listen to a book, but you can move to a book. So really move, like transforming story time, traditional story time. All of us yoga teachers do it. I've just turned it into a business where I'm partnering with authors who are giving me permission to share their work in a mindful way. So
Yeah. And you'll be using my book for sure.
yes, I know we need to talk.
Mhm.
And whenever my book gets published, I'll be using my own too.
Yes,
At some
exactly.
point. I've been writing
And then
it for like
Abby's too.
Yep. When
Abby's
that gets
working on hers.
published.
Are you writing a book?
Yeah, I'm in the SCBWI mentorship right now for a book.
Okay, we need to just
Make
make a date.
Mhm.
I'll come to see you.
Yes. We'll meet halfway.
Yeah.
We'll figure it out.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Well, thank you so much, Rachel, for sharing all the things, all the good stuff, the anxiety stuff, the silly stuff, and just for being you. Your beautiful soul just shines through so nicely. Such a weird sentence, but I mean, it's what came to me, so keep it in. We love you, and we're so grateful that you're with us today.
Thank you so much.
Warriors, I can't. This was such a great conversation. Obsessed with Rachel. She is just the loveliest. She's very grounding. You just want to keep chatting with her. She makes you feel like you're wrapped up in a nice blanket, right? There's like a level of like comfort and safety just listening to her. and I loved hearing her story. My first takeaway is I want to say the first thing that comes to mind was when she was talking about speaking to her inner child as often as she does. And
Mm-hmm.
when she talked about insourcing rather than
Mm-hmm.
outsourcing,
Yeah.
and just what a fabulous word that I can't wait to just continuously not only use to remind myself to do it, but then
Mm-hmm.
to also just practice, right? Like,
Yeah.
and look, we have strong mindfulness practices, but there's something about that phrase that I feel like is going to be a little bit of a
Mm-hmm.
game changer for me
Yeah.
personally. I feel like the idea of us always calling outward for information, for help with something, for figuring it out. And that's great. And we should always be doing that too, because it can be overwhelming in here, meaning our brains. But there is something to be said about pausing to ask yourself those questions about checking in with your physical body. And we do need the reminder, right? And so
Yeah.
that simple word of like, I'm going to practice insourcing right now, I feel like is a great thing for me and hopefully for
Yeah.
all the other warriors.
Yeah.
So valuable.
I love that. And I feel like my first takeaway is related to that. In the sense that I really appreciated the like allowing all the fears to be heard first.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Like that really like stuck in my heart. I really appreciated that. I find that there's so much value in that, right? Because I think that a
Yeah.
lot of times with anxiety, people that are experiencing anxiety feel dismissed. They feel like they should hide it. They feel like they should act like they have it together. They feel like I should have it together, right? Whatever it
Right.
is, and they lock it up and lock it in and keep it inside. And like it's just nice to be able to air the fears out, either saying them out loud to yourself or writing it down or sharing it with a therapist or a friend or whatever. But I think that giving them voice allows us to show anxiety like, hey, these things probably aren't going to happen. And
Right.
what's on the flip side? If we're going to focus on all of these fears, what's the positive? What really great things could happen from this too? Right. And so I just
Totally.
really appreciate that. But it stuck with me just like, giving the fears a voice. They deserve a voice, whether we listen to them
Yeah.
or not. That's a
Right.
choice.
Sure.
I'm gonna start a little rhyme here, right? Voice choice. No, but I valued that a lot.
Same. Yeah. Like silencing what we're experiencing is never going to be useful.
Yeah.
Not now or not ultimately. Right. Um, Agreed. I guess my other like, I mean, God, there's so many things to say always.
Mm-hmm.
I want to just briefly say how grateful I am too about Rachel's vulnerability, sharing about her eating disorder and how that related to her experience with anxiety and how they were so enmeshed throughout her life, right? And even though she
Mm-hmm.
didn't realize her experience with that was due to her anxiety until she was much, much older, right? Just being able to share that with us, I think, was extremely powerful for me.
Yeah.
I imagine many people listening. I guess my other major takeaway is the balance that she struck with the ways that she copes with her stress and anxiety, right? So, like, she talked about how her yoga practice influences her, capability of dealing with her stress or her anxiety. She talked about doing more, that being a fitness instructor and how like that served her for one season of her life too. And the fact that she had exposure to therapy in childhood was sort of unheard of, at least in terms of the people that we've spoken to that grew up around the time that we did. That
Mm-hmm.
was interesting, right? And so like
Mm-hmm.
I do think that probably um has influenced her heavily as well. It sounded like it did. And so I just think that it's just a great reminder for everyone listening that having a balance for ourselves and being able to just sort of flow with whatever practice feels right in this moment
Mm-hmm.
is such a valuable skill and tool to have. Just knowing
Yeah.
that like there is no one way to cope with our current stress or state of being. And if one thing isn't working, hey, time to jump back into the toolbox and find something else that might serve you better. And you and I have spoken about it so often, and even with some of our other guests. And so I just really valued that reminder of like, don't like shit on yourself for that practice that wasn't helping or that isn't helping right now. And it's okay to just move on and try something else.
Yeah. Yeah. And I like that you just said the balance because that also is like what her response was for anxiety warrior. There's the
Yeah.
balance of the strength. And like, I don't like saying anxiety is a weakness, but it definitely gets represented that way and presented that way and
A
everything. And like,
hindrance sometimes. Yeah.
yeah. And so I feel like that idea of balance definitely followed through in a lot of things. Um, I feel like my final takeaway, is just really something that like I had an aha moment where when I'm glad she spoke more about the eating disorder, right? Like I wanted to ask more, but I was like, how's our time going? And does she want to talk about this or not? So I'm glad we had more time to talk. But it made me realize that there's still a lot more I don't understand. Like it reminded me of in the 80s and 90s when I heard about eating disorders. I mean, it was such uneducated crap on like 2020, right?
Yeah.
And I think that when I'm not actually thinking, my bias goes to the 80s and 90s and what that stuff was on TV. And then when I hear someone sharing, like, because in my mind, like, if the anxiety manifesting as food, is that from the discomfort within? Is it from the discomfort without, like, meaning like the outside appearance? Is it, and like just how some anxiety can be connected to eating disorders, but then also sometimes eating disorders don't necessarily connect to anxiety. Like there was just
Right.
all these layers. And when I was listening, I was like, wow, like there's so much more education I could have around this. And that was my takeaway is just like,
Yeah.
I still don't know that much. I think that my like education has gotten better, especially since I started yoga and mindfulness and that part. But it's like, I feel like it's not really spoken about enough unless you're plugged into those groups,
Yep.
right? Unless you're in recovery, unless you know someone in recovery, it's still not really spoken about. And there's not a lot of like just out in the world education about it. You have to like
Right.
look for it and seek it. And so
Yeah.
that was my takeaways. Like, I
We were
don't know.
taught to stuff it down too,
Yeah,
literally. And I hate
right.
that metaphor almost, but like we were, right?
Yeah,
It's just like it is a very underspoken about like illness that a lot of
yeah,
young people in particular, young girls in particular, yes, other genders and anyway. But it is completely underspoken about like
yes.
and its relationship to mental health. I feel like
Mm-hmm.
of all the things that have changed in the conversation around mental health and giving it a voice and shedding light on it and being honest and authentic and vulnerable about it, I feel like there are not the number of people speaking on eating disorders and the probably real number of people that experienced there's something missing here. You know what I
Yes.
mean?
Mm-hmm.
So I completely hear you that there's
Yeah.
a gap there. And I think it's just because we've been literally told to stuff it down since we were
Yeah.
kids.
Or it's just so blanket. It's like more kids have eating disorders because of social media. But what does that mean? Right? Like more kids' mental health is affected because of social media. But again, it's like stop with the
Right.
generalize and like let's speak about it more in like what is it? How does it show up? And how can we support people that are like navigating this?
Yeah.
Anyway.
Anyway, that could be a whole other conversation for
Mm-hmm.
sure. Yeah. So, Rachel, we love you so much. Thank you for
Yeah.
being on our show, for sharing all the things. And Warriors, we love you. So, Warriors, if you'd like to connect with us for any reason, you can join us over on Instagram. We're at Anxiety Warriors Podcast, or you can feel free to shoot us an email at anxietywarriorspodcast@gmail.com to shout out your wins of the week, share topic ideas with us, or if you think you'd be a great fit as a guest on our show, let's get you on the calendar. Let's help you tell your anxiety journey. No story too big or too small for us. We love them all equally. Please take 2 seconds and smash that 5-star rating on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you're tuning in right now. You can like and subscribe to our YouTube channel. We have all of our episodes uploaded for you all over there. And then hop on into our show notes and click our Threadless merch shop link. You can get some amazing Anxiety Warriors podcast stuff on everything from t-shirts, hoodies, mugs, journals, yoga mats, you name it. You can get something with our logos on it. To help support the work that we're doing and hopefully can keep doing because it brings us so much joy.
Yes. Yes. Well, thank you all so much for going on this journey with us. We are so grateful that we get to do this with y'all.
Till next time.
Hey, y'all. This is Abby. We had a really fun and silly lightning round, but Zoom would not pick up the sound of it. So we were making animal sounds that started out with a dying cat and then made many more animal sounds. But for some reason, the microphones just edited that stuff out. When we went to the audio, you couldn't hear it at all. So anyway, I'm leaving you all with Rachel, who sent us an audio clip of her playing the harmonica. Enjoy.